Hello and a good Saturday to you from Radically Rational and RadicallyRational.com. Jim Brown is dead, and I am stunned and disoriented despite the fact that he died at the age of 87. I saw him do so many things on a football field that I had never seen before and never saw since that I just assumed that he could take on the Grim Reaper too. I just assumed that even the Reaper would not dare to front up Jim Brown lest he get trucked and run over. I saw the news push on my phone yesterday afternoon, and this is the truth. I didn't know that I fully believed it, so I had to go to multiple news sources to fully confirm and convince myself that Jim Brown was in fact dead. Now, there's a rule that I have always lived by throughout my career in sports journalism, and that is this. If Mr. Lilly says it, I believe it, and that's the end of it. And Mr. Lilly told me on more than a half dozen occasions that competing against Jim Brown was unlike anything else he ever experienced. In a pantheon of athletic gods, Jim Brown was Zeus. And let's just get this straight, there can be no debate. Jim Brown, the greatest player in NFL history, probably the greatest player in football history, and let's not forget that at the time, at least, he was the greatest lacrosse player who ever lived. There was a bigger gap between Jim Brown and the remainder of the universe than there was for any other player. He was really unique in that he made the greatest football players on earth look completely helpless. And he maintained this aura of mystery throughout. I never quite figured out Jim Brown in a lot of ways. And he was a confounding and complex individual. Think about this. In some ways, he was so inscrutable, he was kind of Dwayne Thomas before Dwayne Thomas was Dwayne Thomas. And I don't think it's any coincidence that Jim Brown became Dwayne Thomas's mentor. So after retiring from football at the age of 30, and I'll get to some numbers in a minute, Jim Brown did more than dabble in the movies. He had 50 acting credits. He was a movie star. And a lot of his roles actually were quite groundbreaking. His impact on America was considerable. He was out front and he was on the right side of many social issues. His activism was positive and often effective. He was also a deeply flawed man who was a perpetrator of serial violence, a lot of it directed against family members, and a lot of it directed against women. And there were numerous occasions, and he's not getting a pass about that from me at all. But he was unlike anything else I ever saw on a football field. I spent a chunk of my Friday night watching Jim Brown highlights, and he was so great that a Jim Brown highlight pretty much meant any time he touched the football. Go to Wikipedia and look at these numbers. I'll just crop dust this a little bit. He only played 9 years in the NFL. He was the rushing champion in 8 of those years. He was all-pro 8 of those years. He averaged over 100 yards rushing per game for his entire career. And in a football world in which you were frequently facing 9-man defensive boxes, Jim Brown averaged 5.2 yards per carry for his career. I've never seen anything like that. And frankly, I'm still not completely certain that he's dead. I think there's a chance that Jim Brown once again is just getting up slowly before he goes back to the huddle to set us all up for the next one. A unique athlete. There's a 100% chance of rain today for the third round of the PGA. This is going to be a fight for survival. And speaking of fights, wouldn't it be great if Koepka and DeChambeau actually punched each other out? I'd be in. So the Celtics are not just down love too, They're down love too, and they're heading to Miami, and they have pissed Jimmy Butler off, and that's not a good thing to do. Astros. Oh, good news last night. They win again. They've won 5 straight, their longest winning streak of the season. And Altuve is back. But one word to the wise, one word of caution. If you say Altuve, we can't be friends. And finally, interesting note yesterday. USC Athletic Director Mike Bond resigned Friday, citing, quote, ongoing health challenges. Yeah, USC got sick of him. Have a good Saturday. We are radically rational.